Number 11. Alfetta 1975 to 1979. If you owned an Alfetta and loved it, you probably still defend it. And that says something, because the car genuinely had things worth admiring. The Alfetta was sold in the American market from 1975 to 1979, and it arrived with a rear-mounted transaxle and independent rear suspension that gave it handling characteristics most American cars of the era could not approach. The concept was sound. The execution was expensive to live with. The transaxle and associated linkage developed a reputation for requiring attention that most owners had not budgeted for, and the Spica fuel injection system caused rough running and cold start difficulties that persisted through the model's American years. Rust moved through the body with a speed that caught buyers in northern climates off guard, attacking door sills and wheel wells within a few years of purchase. Parts were difficult to source, mechanics familiar with the car were rare, and repair costs accumulated in ways that eventually drove most owners elsewhere. The Alfetta is remembered fondly by the enthusiasts who stayed with it. Number 10. Ford Mustang II, 1974 to 1978. Few cars on this list carried the emotional weight of this one, because few cars disappointed an audience that had loved the original quite as completely as the Mustang II did. Ford built it on the Pinto platform, shrinking the Mustang to meet fuel economy targets. That decision was commercially understandable in 1974. What buyers discovered at the dealership was less understandable. A base 2.3-liter four-cylinder producing 88 horsepower in a car whose name still carried the expectation of performance. The Pinto platform brought its known structural tendencies with it. Rust appeared ahead of schedule, and electrical faults followed patterns that Pinto owners had already been reporting for years. Performance options existed, but the mechanical substance beneath the styling packages remained limited across the production run. To be fair, the Mustang II sold. It sold well, in fact, which Ford took as validation. But the buyers who came expecting a Mustang and got a Pinto in a costume left with a disappointment that the nameplate spent years recovering from. Number 9. Triumph TR7, 1975 to 1981. This is one of those cars that looked like a bold statement and drove like a broken promise. The wedge styling was genuinely striking. The ownership experience was not. The TR7 was British Leyland's intended entry into the American sports car market, and from the beginning it was undermined by forces outside any buyer's control. Repeated labor strikes at the Speak factory in Liverpool interrupted production badly enough that consistency and build quality became genuinely difficult to maintain. The cars that reached American dealerships reflected that disruption, and owner accounts from the period point to cooling system issues, carburetor problems, and electrical faults as recurring themes, though the degree varied between individual cars. The Lucas electrical components, which had already earned a damaging reputation across British Leyland's lineup, contributed to that pattern. Production moved to Canley in 1978, but the TR7's standing with buyers never fully recovered from its early years. British Leyland ended production in 1981. The TR7 deserved better engineering. The buyers who purchased it in good faith deserved it more.
Number 8. AMC Gremlin, 1970 to 1978. The Gremlin launched on April 1, 1970. If that timing felt appropriate later, it was not entirely a coincidence. American Motors developed the Gremlin by shortening the existing Hornet platform on a compressed schedule and a constrained budget, and both of those conditions showed up in early ownership. Misaligned body panels, uneven gaps, and interior materials that wore ahead of expectations were consistent complaints across the early production years. The base 232 cubic inch inline-six delivered around 100 horsepower to a solid rear axle that produced a rough and unpredictable ride on anything below smooth pavement. Rust along the lower body was a persistent issue, particularly in northern states where road salt accelerated deterioration well ahead of what buyers considered reasonable. The Gremlin sold consistently through its 8-year run, and some owners found it perfectly adequate for basic transport. But dependability was rarely the reason buyers chose one, and rarely the memory they carried away when they moved on. Number 7. Fiat 128, 1971 to 1979. The joke among owners was that Fiat stood for "Fix It Again, Tony." Whether or not that was fair to the engineers, it reflected something real about the experience of owning one in America. The 128 had a rust problem severe enough to compromise the car's structural integrity within 3 to 5 years of normal use in northern climates. Floor panels, rocker panels, and door frames corroded to a degree that made repairs cost more than the car's market value. The electrical system produced short circuits and component failures that mechanics found difficult to trace and time-consuming to resolve. The clutch required attention ahead of what most buyers expected, and the timing belt demanded regular attention, adding to an ownership experience that was already more fragile and maintenance-sensitive than most American buyers expected. Fiat's American dealer network struggled to stock parts and retain mechanics familiar enough with the car to service it effectively. The 128 had real engineering virtues underneath its problems. They were simply very hard to access from inside an American repair shop. Number 6. Bricklin SV-1, 1974 to 1975. Some cars belong on this list for being dangerously unreliable. The Bricklin belongs here for something rarer. It managed to be unreliable in ways that were almost theatrical. The SV-1 was a Canadian-built gull-wing sports car backed by provincial government funding. The concept attracted real attention. The execution produced a car whose acrylic body panels cracked and discolored within months of purchase, turning brittle and yellowing in ways no showroom visit could have predicted. The hydraulic door system failed often enough to become one of the car's most notorious ownership headaches. The AMC V8 overheated due to inadequate cooling design, and the electrical systems rarely worked consistently for extended periods. Build quality varied so dramatically between individual cars that no two were assembled quite the same way. Bricklin produced approximately 2,900 units before declaring bankruptcy in 1975. For a car that existed for barely 2 model years, it left an unusually complete record of ways a vehicle could fail its owners.
Number 5. AMC Pacer, 1975 to 1980. The Pacer was supposed to be the future. The problem was the future it was designed around never arrived. AMC had planned the Pacer around a Wankel rotary engine that General Motors was contracted to supply. When GM canceled the rotary program, AMC was left with a body designed for an engine it would never receive, forced to install a heavier conventional inline-6 that left the car front-heavy from launch. The 232 cubic inch 6 produced around 100 horsepower in a body approaching 3,000 pounds. The massive glass area turned the cabin into a heat trap and added to the sense that the car's design had compromised everyday usability. Overheating and electrical issues were among the most commonly reported complaints from owners of this model. The Pacer's wide proportions and unconventional shape attracted genuine curiosity, and some people genuinely liked the interior space it offered. But the mechanical reality underneath the distinctive styling was a car built around an architecture that had been compromised before the first one reached a customer. Number 4. Dodge Aspen, 1976 to 1980. The Dodge Aspen arrived for 1976 with fresh styling, a range of body styles, and pricing aimed at mainstream buyers. Within months, it became clear the car had been rushed to market. Chrysler issued its first recall before the model year was even complete. The recall activity never stopped. Over the Aspen's production life, it accumulated one of the most extensive recall records of any American car from the decade, covering carburetor fires, brake failures, hood latch defects, and engine stalling. Premature rust was severe enough to consume fender wells and floor sections within 2 or 3 winters in cold climates on cars that buyers had purchased new. Consumer Reports placed the Aspen among the lowest-rated American compacts of the period. Its Plymouth twin, the Valere, shared the same platform and the same documented deficiencies in every category. The Aspen didn't fail in one dramatic way. It's failed in nearly every way across nearly every system, consistently enough that the record it left behind remains one of the clearest examples of what happens when production timelines override quality validation. Number 3. Chevrolet Vega, 1971 to 1977. Motor Trend named the Vega its Car of the Year for 1971. Few automotive awards have aged as poorly. The Vega's 2.3-liter aluminum inline-4 used an aluminum cylinder bore without conventional iron liners, a design that required precise thermal management to function correctly. Under real-world heat cycles, the block warped, oil consumption climbed, and engine wear accelerated well beyond what any buyer had reason to expect. The Vega accumulated an unusually long recall and complaint history over its production run, covering issues across the engine, axle, and other systems. Rust penetrated body panels, floor sections, and structural areas within 2 to 3 seasons in cold climates. More than 2 million units were sold. The scale of that sales number makes the reliability record more troubling, not less, because it means the gap between GM's internal testing and the real-world ownership experience was wide enough to affect a very large number of people who had trusted the company's most promoted new product of the decade.
Number 2. Ford Pinto, 1971 to 1980. This is the car on this list that stopped being just a reliability story and became something more serious, and the distinction matters. The Ford Pinto was introduced in 1971, developed in under 25 months under pressure from Ford leadership. A critical defect went unaddressed. The fuel tank was placed between the rear bumper and the axle, where rear-end collisions could rupture it and trigger fires. NHTSA investigations later uncovered internal Ford documents containing a cost-benefit analysis that compared the cost of a fuel system correction against projected legal settlement costs. That disclosure became one of the most damaging in the industry's history. Ford recalled 1.5 million Pintos in 1978 to address the tank configuration. Beyond the safety record, the Pinto accumulated consistent complaints about body corrosion and electrical reliability throughout its production run. The car was pulled from production in 1980. The Pinto's place on this list is not primarily about unreliability. It is about a documented gap between what was known and what was done, which is a different and more serious kind of failure. Number 1. Oldsmobile Delta 88 with diesel V8, 1978 to 1985. Every car on this list failed its owners. This one failed an entire generation of American buyers and badly damaged American consumer confidence in domestic diesel passenger cars for years. When the fuel crisis made diesel appealing, General Motors moved quickly. For 1978, Oldsmobile introduced a diesel V8 option across its full lineup. The problem was fundamental. The LF9 5.7-liter diesel V8 was adapted from an existing gasoline engine block, a platform never engineered to withstand diesel compression ratios. Head gasket failures became widespread almost immediately. Defective seals allowed water into the fuel injection system, and the absence of proper fuel filtration caused irreversible internal damage across a large percentage of engines. Documented failures before 50,000 miles were common enough that class-action lawsuits followed, and GM launched multiple remediation programs. The lasting consequence was a serious and well-documented collapse of American consumer confidence in domestic diesel passenger cars that shaped the market for years afterward. No other car on this list damaged a category so broadly.